Boom, 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 everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of The Color of Motion. I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades, and I like people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that, I always say I'm just crazy about. My name is Don Terrell, and again, I want to say welcome to the show. You always know the drill. Make sure you hop into the comments, say, hey, where you tuning in from, so that I can give you the shout out that you so richly deserve. I hope everybody is having an amazing day, an amazing weekend, and can't thank you enough for, give me a little bit of your time, as always. Make sure that you hop on over to the Facebook group community, facebook.com/groups/The Color of Motion. Join the group, join our family. We have a lot of fun over there, share industry news, and just like I said, have an all-around great time over there. And you know me, I love a big family. It is growing, so I'm excited about that. So we definitely don't want you to miss out on anything when it comes to The Color of Motion, for sure. So again, facebook.com/groups/The Color of Motion. I want to see you over there for sure. Also, you can connect with me on my social channels here. Definitely want to hear from you. Give me some feedback. Feedback is always good, for sure. It helps me to make the show the best that I can possibly make it. Like I said, as we wind this year down, like I said, it's going by quick. We're already getting into the Halloween season, for sure. And after that, it goes by quick. So as this year goes down, going into season 4, definitely looking to make some, big adjustments, make the show even better, even tighter. And any feedback from you always makes it better, for sure. Also, hop on over to the store. The store is open. Definitely want you to pick up some swag items, for sure. colorofmotion.net/swag. You can pick you up some great gear, some shirts, some hoodies, mugs, constantly putting new things into the shop. So, I always enjoy seeing as many people as possible in Color of Motion gear. Only thing I request is that if you do, make sure you shoot over a picture to me so that I can share it on the show, share it on the social channels, and give you a big plug for sure. So hop on over to the colorofmotion.net/swag and pick you up something, for sure. Also, like I said, we're here each and every week, every Saturday, 3 p.m. Central Time, live to the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, the Facebook group, and the website for the show. But I always encourage everybody to hop on over to the YouTube channel, get subscribed, hit the bell notification, get plugged in. There you can check out all the great episodes that we've had so far. Like I said, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you get notified when we go live, when great content goes on the channel. Comment, because that always helps the algorithm. As always, you got to feed the beast. What can you say? Miss Maggie, appreciate you tuning in, as always, and stopping by, for sure. So definitely, I know you're going to enjoy this episode, for sure. What else? I always feel like forgetting something, but I think I got pretty much everything down on the housekeeping stuff. So I'm super excited about this episode. Like I said, really been looking forward to sitting down, talking with my next guest, really diving into her backstory, and really talking deeply about what she's doing, for sure. So, I think without further ado, we can kind of get this show on the road, don't you think? Yes, yes, yes. We are back and ready to go. So, without further ado, super excited, like I said, about this episode and been looking forward to it for a while. My next guest is from Vermont, and when she was about 12 years old, she stumbled on the behind the scenes bonus disc of Monsters Incorporated. So, I'm suddenly feeling old and was blown away by the fact that her job could be making animated movies. At that point, she vowed that she would become a character animator and even wrote a letter to Pixar and got a response back, which is still framed in her room. She went on to Rochester Institute of Technology to study 3D animation and still wanted to improve her skills after her graduation. In 2020, she enrolled in Animation Mentor and graduated the character animation program in 2021. Since then, she's worked a short 3-month gig at a small game studio called Rekindled, where she animated attack, locomotion, idle, and spawn animations. After finishing there, she joined a small VFX studio called Bake Studios, where she's been compositing. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Miss Christine Miller. Christine, welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being on the show. I would like to say, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a great
Awesome,
day. It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
awesome, awesome. Well, like I said, ever since we connected, I know definitely, and we had a chance to get to know each other a little. I definitely wanted to have you on the show, kind of talk about your journey, talk about what you're doing, what you've learned so far in this industry. Really talk about the need to get more diversity within this space, and just all animation. I always like to start, like I said, because I love Monsters Incorporated,
Yeah.
and I think it's always, I think you really get the sense of, and I think it's the true animator or artist that watched the behind the scenes and all the making of. What was it specifically within that really clicked and said, wow, this is what I want to do? Was there any one particular thing that you saw in the behind the scenes that really did it for you?
Well, specifically, I think funnily enough, the biggest thing that I remember that comes to mind was watching like the tests that they did and seeing how the movie changed throughout the process. And the entire disc is incredible because it's a whole documentary about, hey, here's the entire process that we did. Even like the hair on Sully as a character was a technological advancement at the time, and even just figuring out how are we going to make this work and all that was so cool to me growing up because you always as a kid hear about like your standard jobs, but like no one ever talks about there's a huge group of people that their job is to make these amazing movies, and I was like, hey, I want to do that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What I love about Pixar is they always pick a movie to really advance on something. Whether it's like in Monsters Inc., it was hair, and really pushing the boundaries of what they can do with hair. I love Bug's Life, and there it
Mhm.
was about light and how light interacted, translucency and stuff. So that's the thing that I really love about Pixar. And it was cool. And what made me think, like I said, you wrote to Pixar. Did they write it? Because I did the same thing. I was a comic strip nut, and I love Peanuts, so I wrote to Charles Schultz,
Yeah.
and he wrote me back, which was kind of cool. Was there anything that, I mean, did anything specifically stand out for you about that letter? I know mine.
Yeah.
While I loved it, I knew it was a form letter, but I still loved it all the same.
Yeah, for me it was funny because I wrote them like an essay. Um, it wasn't even just, hey, I want to work for you. Like, it was an essay about, like, oh my God, I'm so inspired. And, like, from a 12-year-old, it's kind of funny to think back on. But I talked about Monsters Inc. a lot in it. And what I love about what they did with the letter was they kind of personalized it to Monsters Inc. so that you knew, like, I knew that they read it. Like,
Yeah,
the Pixar logo has one of the characters like in the eye, it's Sully waving, and then with the letter, they actually included this part of the reason it's framed. It was a photo-sized poster of the
yeah,
movie, and it was signed by the runner of the company at the time and the director, just to be like, "Hey, we want to make sure that you know we see you, and we want you to keep going." So
that is
that was nice
cool.
for me. They read
Yeah,
it.
that is so cool. I think if more studios did that, that would really go a long way. And more artists did that, I think that would really go a long way in really inspiring people to become a part of the industry for sure.
Yeah.
Mr. DeMille, appreciate you tuning in. It's good to see you again. He says, hey, Christine. It's been
Hey,
a minute
Jamil.
there. So thank you there, DeMille, for stopping by, a faithful viewer of the show. And has been on the show, super talented game animator. And you did a little work in the game space,
A little
um,
bit.
which, like I said, I'm sure DeMille will appreciate. What was and we'll kind of get back to your schooling and training.
Mhm.
But what was the fun part about working your little stint at the game studio?
It was just fun, honestly, for me to work professionally because that was my first professional gig. I loved, they set me up to do this character that was just like this wheel with an angry face on it, basically. He's one of the enemies of the game. And I had so much fun because they basically just told me the idea of what they wanted for each thing, like, oh, this is an attack or this is a whatever, and they let me roll with it. And that was so much fun. Like even like the way that the character died, I'm like, what if it's like a coin spinning and like eventually settling? And they're like, that's awesome. That's what we were thinking. Like it was so much fun to kind of work at a smaller place where I was able to collaborate with my bosses and stuff, and my ideas were a lot more heard. I guess it
Yeah,
was awesome.
yeah, and to that point, um, and I'm not sure. Like I said, after that, you went into a small VFX studio. Do you and you haven't had a chance to, I guess, be in a big monster, say like Disney or Pixar type of thing.
Mhm.
Do you enjoy, um, which, like I said, you haven't been in this big studio yet, so I guess it's a hard comparison. But is the fact that it's a lot more collaborative in a smaller studio, is that something that really kind of appeals to you? You think more than say getting at Pixar or I mean, I guess that's always a feather in a cap for
Yeah.
animators. But again, it's more siloed, of course,
Mhm.
in a big studio like that.
I think honestly, what's great about small studios and working small, especially when I'm starting out, is it's not even just being able to kind of collaborate with, the leads of the studio or whatever, but I've noticed a lot more, I don't want to say forgiving, but like when with me being a beginner and we're able to like help me through some stuff that I might have been confused in, where I feel like if I brought issues up with maybe a bigger place, it could be more stressful. Like they might not have the time to walk me through stuff.
Yeah,
Where like Baked in particular has been incredible. Like I started off at this studio like barely knowing how to composite, and I've had meetings with like one of the heads of the studio where he just walks me through stuff if I'm stuck and helps me understand the art form better, and that's been incredible. And I feel like that's something that you get more when you're at a smaller place. It's been awesome.
yeah, yeah. And I'm sure that was a fright, or I won't say frightening, but a little more stressing just knowing that, hey, like you just said, I'm barely new compositing and getting in on this shot. Um, was that something that took you a little bit to kind of work yourself through, or the fact that the lead was really kind of hand holding and really helping you with it made the process a lot easier for you?
I think it's a little bit of both. I kind of came into the company knowing like, oh, I'm kind of new at this. I took one class in compositing about 5 years prior, and I emailed them being like, hey, I'm a 3D animator, and I think they just saw Nuke on my resume and were like, hey, she's a compositor. I remember them sending me like a test, and I thought it was going to be an animation, and it was in compositing, and I was like, well, we'll pivot, I guess. Like, we'll figure this out. Um, but they've been great. I mean, like, at first they kind of let me do my thing. They gave me some simple stuff to kind of start out with. But if they give me a new shot that has a complex part to it that they're like, oh, she might not quite understand how to do this, then that's when they'll bring in Matt, is the
Yeah.
lead that's been helping me. And just let me sit down with him. And he always has the time to just do like a meeting and be like, here's how I would do this shot. And honestly, I think that's better for even just like imposter syndrome, to have someone that walks you through it instead of just feel like you're constantly messing up. Like at least they've taken the time to help me grow as an artist
Yeah.
instead of just leaving me
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
worry about it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I think it's always good for kind of the person just coming into a space, um, to come into a smaller studio, because, like you said, you do have people that'll kind of rally around you to kind of help you through, going through it. You went to Rochester Institute. How was that experience?
It,
Just
yeah.
going into it.
It was wonderful, honestly. I came from a very small town in Vermont where my high school had two art classes, and I took both of those, and that was about it. So being able to go to a college that my entire program was dedicated not only to art, but the specific part of art that I want to do was so cool, and just meeting other artists and stuff like that when I didn't really have the chance when I grew up was amazing.
Yeah.
I think IT did a great job of teaching us, in general, like if you want to make your own film, they'll teach you every aspect of it. You can make your own film. The reason I did mentor after is because I needed some more specialized in animation, but
Yeah.
like I think RIT's got a really great generalist program going, and the faculty and all of my fellow classmates were awesome. I had a great time there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, growing up in Vermont, like you said, you had two classes. Were your circle of friends kind of creative like you, or did you have a big group of friends that were in that space? 'Cause I always know it's great, if you're creative, you tend to kind of gravitate towards other creatives. And for you, was it hard to find a big group? Was it a really small group, a large group?
Well, my friend group was, I think, creative in a different sense. I was really into like the music department, and I still play my trumpet today at
Oh
with
wow.
a community band. Yeah. Um, and that was kind of the type of creative that like my high school fostered really well. Like our music department was a very good music department. So all of my friends were like the music kids. That's what my group was, and it was great, but not a lot of people were like, I want to be an artist growing up. A few of my friends went into music after, but even so, it was music and not like animation.
Yeah.
So honestly, I would love to go back at some point, and I know they're trying to expand with 3D softwares and stuff like that. I would love to see that and maybe help them kind of foster people like me growing up in that
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so did you have any illusion of doing something else for your life outside of art or something creative? Like I said, I've talked with a lot of guests that it's surprising what their degree is, has nothing to do with animation, or sometimes they get pressure from their parents not wanting them to kind of go down this route. They're thinking, well, I should maybe get a more stable degree. um, for you, did you think about doing anything else other than that? And how did your parents kind of foster or help to foster your creativity?
I think as soon as I saw that documentary, I was like, this is what I'm doing. I don't think I've wavered on that at all since like from a kid. And it's funny because my parents, I think I was like 11, 12 years old at the time. They're like, oh, it's just, kids think of what they want to be when they grow up and it changes all the time. And I think they finally took it seriously when I was like, oh, I'm looking at art schools. They're like,
Mm.
wait. um, it didn't help too. My older sister, who's amazing, she just got her doctorate in like cancer research. Like
Oh
that's
wow.
what she's been doing, and so I like to joke I'm the family disappointment. um,
No,
no,
no. But
but
did they sway, or did they, I mean, when they saw that you were serious about looking at different schools, did they have any reservations about you going down that route and wanting to do something else?
yeah, they did. I have like this vivid memory of like sitting at the kitchen counter, and it felt like an intervention. Like my parents and my sister, like,
Everybody's home.
like, like, yeah, what are you doing? Because like even like my extended family, most of my extended family went into like finance or engineering or like whatever. Like I'm one of the first kind of art dedicated people in my extended family as well,
Uh-huh.
and so they tried really hard to talk me out of it, especially because like in high school, like I graduated second in my class. Like I was smart,
Yeah.
and I just remember my mom like saying like you're wasting this, like like you're so good at like science and math, you're wasting it. You could be so good. And I remember just saying like, yeah, like maybe I could, but I wouldn't be happy. Like I know that.
Yeah.
And so we made a compromise, and they were like, hey, you can go to an animation school, but it can't just be an art school. It's got to be a school with other options. So if you don't like it, you can switch degrees. So that's part of where RIT came from, because it's
Mm.
a great like tech and engineering school as well.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, at first, obviously, there were a lot of reservations, but as time has passed, I'm very lucky. My parents are incredibly supportive now, my whole family.
Yeah.
Um, and I've just been blessed because I know a lot of people that my age that still struggle with their parents being like, you need to do something else. Whereas, mine are like, no, we believe in you. You got this now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. And it always fascinates me, I guess. And and I've heard, like I said, a lot of guests, say the same thing. They never really thought until they saw like something like a behind the scenes, or saw, something clicked in them that people can make a living doing it, as to why, and I guess, parents want you the security of it. Um Initially though, how did that make you feel when, when I guess, they initially, that initial thing of, yeah, we know you don't want to do art, or we know you want to do art, but we think you should do this, because that could easily, and obviously there's a lot of, artists and kids that do go on to get education or a degree in something and then totally switch
mhm.
into animation. But it does have to play a little bit on, a kid's psyche initially, when they say what they want to do, and show that they're committed to what they're wanting to do. What
Mhm.
was your initial, I guess, kind of thought?
I think initially I definitely felt a little like misunderstood. I felt like as a kid I did plenty of research on like my chances of making it. I've learned since it's a lot harder than 12-year-old me thought it was, but that's
Yeah,
okay. and but I just remember like all those conversations, like I remember just crying the whole time because like, it's like I it never wavered like my determination to do this, but it felt kind of awful that like my family at first didn't like believe in me or didn't think that I could do it, even though I was super determined and I was like, I'm going to do this. Like,
yeah,
you guys just need to understand that. And I remember at one point I was like, if I need to pay for college myself, if they aren't gonna let me, I'm gonna. Like,
yeah, yeah,
I'm too determined to do this to cave in about my education or anything else. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And like I said, you said you went to Rochester, and then to get further education, you enrolled in Animation Mentor.
Mhm.
And I looked at them as myself as going because they're a great school. But do you feel like that's where and there's a plethora of online learning and online schools now. Like I said, Anim,
Mhm.
school, Noman. There's so many online schools now. One, what was kind of the big difference you saw in going to a brick and mortar school and then taking it an online
Mhm.
learning? Obviously, it's a different kind of mindset. But for you, what was the biggest kind of difference in the two?
I think the biggest difference with Mentor was honestly how specialized it was. And if I were to have like one complaint about RIT's program is it like you had choices to take classes, but I feel like if you were able to from the jump say like I want to do animation particularly, and just do classes in that and team up with other people to make a film and be just the animator on that, I feel like that could be better for our industry is super specialized.
Yeah,
Whereas like Mentor, you start out and it's just like the entire thing, it's just animation. And it's incredible too because it's taught by people that are working in this industry.
yeah,
So they're teaching you not only how to animate from what they've learned, but also how to navigate the industry and stuff like that. Like that's what I think is so incredible about Mentor is the fact that it's these professionals that are
yeah.
helping
Real
you along.
practical. Yeah, real practical learning and teaching from
Hmm.
people like you said that are in the industry, and that was really the kind of allure for me. Obviously, like I was just saying, online's a little obviously a little different. You kind of have to be self motivated to get through the
Hmm.
program as opposed to being in a brick and mortar. Do you feel like you grew in that space, or was the passion for you? You felt you had enough to get through the program.
I think it's a little combination of both. Like I've always, like I said, been very hard on this is what I want to do. And I think Mentor was perfect for me as someone who was already super determined. Because yeah, for the most part, you are more responsible for yourself with an online class, but that wasn't ever a worry for me because I was like, I'm gonna do this. I want to get better.
Yeah,
So it did really help me grow because I it just allowed me to laser focus on the specific thing that I wanted to do. But yeah, I think it was super helpful for me. I know it doesn't work for everyone, but for me
yeah,
it was
yeah.
great.
Well, I mean, and obviously, I think the connections and the relationships and friendships that you built through that, because I'm a lot of the students that go through there obviously end up in studios or obviously end up working on projects yourself. That was another allure, I guess, for me. I guess going to or thinking about doing an online school was one, the fact that everybody there was laser focused on that specific thing, and you knew that they were going to go off into their uh, own respective journeys. And I found that it's a very small industry. Even though it's large, it's very small in the sense of
Mhm.
everybody seems to know one another, have gone to school or worked at a studio, and kind of refer each other around. Was that something too that also you came to realize as you were going through that program, and has it benefited you, um, just as you were going on your journey before you guess you got into Bake Studios, or maybe even somebody in Bake Studios, or somebody referred you to Bake Studios? I mean, how has that been as far as the relationships that you've made?
That's been nice actually. I we actually still have, and I'm still a part of a huge group chat of like animation mentor
Yeah.
alumni and current students. And that's been wonderful because we can talk about, a lot of us are like in a studio now, and so we can talk about our experiences. We have channels dedicated for personal projects if you want to show off what you're doing, and people can give you notes. And that's helped me along as well in terms of my animation journey, because I no longer have a mentor that's giving me notes, but I have my friends that
Yeah.
are willing to help me out. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's those relationships are great. It's funny because the first few classes, I don't think I made any like strong connections with our classes, but as it went on, like the classes got more and more close. My class six was super close, and I loved every single person in my class six. And that's part of the reason why I'm in this group chat is someone invited me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that connection, that relationship is wonderful. I'm really excited. A bunch of us are going to CTN this year, so I get to meet them in person for the first time. Um,
Nice.
and
Nice.
it's great. It's great.
Nice for sure. Mr. Dewan, appreciate you tuning in. He says, "Good Saturday, Christine. Thank you for stopping by as always." So, what was for you? Because I think you know, one, because they're so specialized, and because they're pretty much all the instructors, like you said, are working at studios, um, and they go out of their way to really get artists ready to go into a studio. What was the biggest challenge going through Animation Mentor that took was a little struggle for you to kind of get through?
Oh, my class five. And it's funny because that's the second to last course. Um, I'm not alone in that. A lot of people end up hating what they do in class five for some reason. It's just a point where I guess a lot of people kind of stagnate. And I remember feeling so good at myself at the end of class four, and I hated my project the entire way through class five. I never thought it looked good. Like I couldn't understand how to make it look better. Like my mentor, bless his heart, was like giving me amazing notes, but it wasn't clicking for me, and I got so frustrated. But I think the best thing that came out of that though is on our last class, it's more of just talking and asking questions about the industry. And he was asking all of us like, how do you feel? And I told him like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like I hate my project. I don't like what happened. And he's like, really? And a few of my other classmates were like, no, I agree. I'm the same way. And he told me this thing that like totally changed how I feel like when I hit a wall, where it's like, he's like, the reason why you're feeling this way is because your eye and your hand grow at different levels. And so there are a lot of times where your hand grows before your eye. So to your eye, you're like, this looks incredible and like, I'm doing great. But then you reach an area where your eye is growing faster than your hand. So you're noticing that it's not looking as good, but your hand's not there yet. And so he was like, this is actually such a good thing. It means you're learning on a fundamental level so much more about animation, and your hand is going to catch up, like I promise. And that's completely changed everything. I'm like, okay, like if I'm frustrated with something, like it's just my eye grew faster. I need to let my hand catch up.
Oh man, and I'm gonna ask you about uh, your recent project that you got your first credit. I saw your post; it was amazing. Where you worked on the burial, uh, but was Rochester the only place that you picked up nuke from or
Yeah.
compositing?
I mean, kind of. So I took the class in compositing. It was a really fun class. Like I loved that class. And so that was great, but that was about like 5 to 7 years ago. And so when they sent me the test, I had to do a lot of refresher. Um, but I just remember like hearing about with everything everywhere all at once. They're like, oh, all of our VFX were done through YouTube tutorials. Like we didn't know what we were doing at first. And I'm like, if they could do that and make that movie, like I can figure this
Let me
out.
jump on an Andrew Kramer tutorial and try and fix some stuff up. Oh man, I don't know if you'd be able to do that at a Pixar or Sony for
No,
sure.
probably not.
Oh man, so I mean, and like I said, what you're doing now at Bake Studios is compositing. Is
Mhm.
there obviously you wanted to be an animator, um, and that's where your journey is going. But what is it about compositing that you love, and or what is it about compositing, and what is it about compositing that you don't necessarily like?
Um, I honestly like the way that Nuke works. It's node-based editing, so you have
Yeah,
these nodes you place that change things, and I don't know why my brain like understands that well. So I have
yeah.
fun like with the nodes and everything.
I'm having a hard
Um,
time on that one. Like I said, I'm trying to get in my head wrapped around nodes. Like I said, I'm so used to Photoshop,
yeah.
After Effects, layer based, and so nodes
Hmm.
is just a whole different methodology. But I understand the power and behind it, and
Yeah.
how easy it is to see where things are kind of laid out and where things are plugged into.
Hmm.
So
But yeah.
was that
Sorry.
no was that is that the one thing? I mean, what is it that you really kind of love and really kind of don't like about
Yeah.
compositing?
Well, yeah, so the node base makes it a lot easier for me. I like the fact that it's easier for me to understand. It feels a little more techy, but there are still instances where like I paint stuff out and that feels a lot like Photoshop, like the draw node. Um, I would say maybe the less fun part of compositing is sometimes there can be like really little tedious things that like you have to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And if you have a shot that's got like a bunch of different aspects to it, sometimes like you'll miss out on this other thing and then that comes back at you. So a lot of times like the nodes are very like a lot more general because you're working on a big area. So like I have gone through times where it's like, oh, like this is kind of wrong, and I'm like, okay, I'll fix it, and then it'll come back, oh, this other area is kind of wrong, and I'm like, oh shoot, so in
uh,
that way it can be a little frustrating, the little tedious kind of technical stuff, but it's not enough to make me not like what I do. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
still
yeah,
really enjoy working in Nuke for now, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
fine.
No, like I said, I'm trying to wrap my head around nodes for sure. Because like I said, I do think it's something that's good to know.
Hmm.
And obviously, a lot of the more professional industry standard programs are going nodes.
Yeah.
I'm sure some still maybe use After Effects, but for the most part, I think Nuke. But even like I said, even because I'm learning Blender,
Okay.
even Blender is nodes. So
Yeah.
so
Can't
nodes
get
is
away.
yeah, you can't get away. You can't get away. Um, like I was just mentioning, you just one of your recent projects is the burial, and I saw a trailer of it on online. It looks like a great movie. What was it like working on that? And obviously, it's always a big dopamine hit when you see your name in the credits and
Yeah.
you feel like you're a part of something. But for you, what was the experience like working on that project, and what was the biggest takeaway that you took away from working on that project?
Yeah, I mean, that film in particular, I think was a lot more fun for me because at that point I had worked on some other projects. I had some stuff under my belt, so they were able to give me more shots and more complicated stuff. So it was, I think, a little more fun because I felt more trusted, I guess, as an artist. There was there were two large sequences that I worked on, and it's so wonderful to see them like on the screen. Even one of the shots that I did made it into a trailer, and like that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
I think honestly, the biggest takeaway I got from it was just kind of like we were talking earlier before the show, like rolling with stuff.
yeah,
Because the production itself, at one point, went into edits, and so it was like, oh, all the stuff that you're doing might not be in the film anymore. Let us hold off. And then when the edits came back, it was like now everything's completely different. And also there were like a few deliveries that were like I had to get a lot of shots in for a delivery because we wanted a big delivery for the client. And so there was a lot of like late nights and but it was fun because I knew I was working on something like amazing.
Yeah.
But just being able to roll with whatever happened and just kind of persevere, I think is the biggest takeaway because it wasn't the smoothest, but I really enjoyed it. It was great to work on, and the film's amazing. I got a chance to see it in theaters, so super
Yeah.
fun.
No, for sure. Um, and kind of going along with that, like I just said, it's always a big a nice thing, a big dopamine hit when you see, your name in the credits. How do you not kind of you enjoy the moment of it, but not let that be the driving force as to why you're in the industry. Oh, I want to see my name up on the screen and that type of thing. How do you kind of keep yourself balanced in keeping the joy of the work that you're doing and the things that you're learning?
Yeah. I think in some ways it's important to kind of stay humble. Some people could get a big head about, oh, my name's on this movie and it's a good movie. But also part of it too and it is I think I'm glad that I still have something that I can work towards, more that I can learn. And I think what's beautiful about just any artistic field is nothing's ever going to be perfect. There's always going to be room for improvement. So even just thinking about it in that sense and being like, all right, like this is done and this was great, but like I can still do better, and I can still learn more. That's kind of what's been driving me to keep enjoying it because I just love learning new things about our industry and about art. So that's been my driving factor for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Um, I always kind of like to throw this in because it is kind of the rising tide in this industry, AI, and how
Mhm.
AI is kind of creeping into every little space. Has it? Has it? Have you seen it start to creep into kind of your area? And I don't mean that in a bad way because, like I said, I
Yeah.
look at it as a tool.
Mhm.
But I know some haven't, seen it, and I know people fall on one side or the other when it comes
Mhm.
to AI. Have you start to seeing it kind of creep into the space that you're doing with compositing? And what are your kind of thoughts on just AI in general?
I've seen some buzz about like AI powered nodes, AI powered tools that can help paint outs and stuff look better. So if there's something on a wall that needs to not be on the wall, there's some AI tools that have been making that easier for artists. And when it's used as a tool, I feel like that's something that I don't mind as much. I always have a problem with it when it's like the entire art is just AI, and on top of that, like not only is it not really art, but you're stealing from
Yeah,
other artists, and so
yeah.
like I kind of have a hard line when it comes to AI. My friends joke like, "Oh, don't bring it up around Christine," because like someone once like a few days ago was like, "Oh, AI is gonna like do 3D animation soon," and I was like, "No, it's not." like,
Yeah,
um,
and
yeah.
I've had this like I said, I've had a few discussions, even a few episodes of especially a couple of weeks ago with a couple of my friends on the show talking about AI, and I think there's this space where, like I said, it's a tool. It can be used as a tool to kind of ideate or aid,
Mhm,
make a certain task easier.
mhm,
But I don't think it'll take the human element. And I think, you know, maybe at some point there will be an AI tool that just, spits out a movie or something like that. But now whether the quality of it, I don't know
yeah.
because I think you're taking out the human experience. Like
Mhm,
a friend of mine was saying, the whole reason we're artists and creatives is we're bringing our own human experience into the project that we're working on. So I don't think that's something ever that AI is going to be able to do, the
mhm,
human experience. But I do think as a tool, it's a great thing and it has the potential of making the creative's job a little bit easier in
Right.
what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Um, for sure. So you're doing compositing right now, but you want to be an animator. You went to animation mentor. Is there a point where you're going to want to make that shift? Trying to make that shift, or do you see yourself sitting in the compositing space for quite a while?
It's funny because every time I have like a feeling of, oh, maybe I could just like do this, because my company is awesome. Like I've had a great time with Baked for sure.
Yeah,
Uh, it seems like something always comes up that kind of rips me back out. um, like last year, I was like, I've got this job. Like maybe I just stay here. And then I went to CTN and I got to take a master class from a Pixar animator, and I was like, oh, like,
it
never
lights that
mind.
pilot light again. It's like,
So like, yeah, I mean, currently I still have like feelers out for
yeah,
animation for sure, and I'm still doing personal projects to keep myself
yeah,
fresh and keep improving. But it's gotten to a point now where I'm like, I'm not gonna leave Baked for anything that's like I only kind of want to do,
yeah,
because Baked's been wonderful. But like, if some opportunity that I think would really help me or at a place that I've always wanted to work or whatever happens, then like I would jump ship.
yeah, yeah. And that, because I've been kind of thinking about that a lot too, lately in my space and in just in my journey, in my industry and what I'm doing. This point of being careful not to get into comfortability,
Hmm.
and kind of sacrificing kind of your dream or your passion and where you're wanting to go in that moment where you're kind of put in or asked to take a leap.
Hmm.
Have you thought about that as far as I love my job, it's a great job, but I don't want to get into this space of being comfortable because
Hmm.
I do have a position and then regretting, like you said, you're going to CTN or going to, these shows and you're seeing what you really want to do. How do you? Because like I said, these are questions that I ask myself.
Yeah.
In the day to day things that I do just as a job, and what kind of I would kind of like to get into. So how do you as a creative kind of balance that? Yeah, I'm learning. I love my job. It's a great job. But I don't want to get comfortable in this space.
Yeah. I mean, what helps me again is like personal projects. Like I'm still animating, even though I'm not technically working in animation right now.
Yeah.
And that helps me kind of stay hungry for what I really want to do. In a lot of instances, like my roommate and I went to SIGGRAPH this past year. I'm going to CTN again this year, and kind of finding those conferences or there's opportunities to meet other creatives and then even be able to talk to some of these studios that like I want to see myself at someday,
Yeah.
helps as well. Or even just like connecting with recruiters and asking, or do you think you're going to need someone soon? Like, just putting feelers out. Like I said, it's great to have the job that I have right now, and I'm really lucky to have kind of a job in the creative field while I'm still trying to kind of get
Yeah.
to the main goal. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. For me, it's about just staying passionate, staying hungry for what you want to do, and
Yeah.
rolling with it whenever you can. All those opportunities.
Yeah. Now, is that kind of your north star of I want to get into a studio doing animating, and work for a studio, or is it getting to the point of okay, maybe get into a studio for a little bit, but then work on my own ideas or own stories that you may have? I don't know if, like I said, some people are like they may not be writers, but they may know writers that are working on something. They want to work on their kind of own, animated shorts or animated films. Is that a kind of a further North Star for you, or is just, some people, they're good with, I want to get to Disney, I want to get to Pixar, I want to get in their studio that they want to get into, and be part of a machine.
Yeah. I think for now, the North Star is definitely just like getting to a studio. That's been the goal since I was little. But I do know like I've met plenty of people that ended up starting their own thing or doing their own indie projects that did that because they had always wanted to work at a studio and then they got there and didn't like realized it wasn't what they thought.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I'm not gonna like immediately shut down the idea of going off on my own at
yeah,
some point, but I think for now, like it's the studio, and then when I get there, like we'll see what happens.
yeah, yeah. Now, is that something that your mentor at Animation Mentor maybe talked about, of, while he loves animating, it wasn't exactly what he thought, or was it what he thought? And have you, since you've been on this journey, was it something that you didn't realize that, you know kind of surprised you, or, you know you didn't think about when you got into the studio?
Yeah, I mean, definitely initially that wasn't a thought. Like I was like, oh, everyone wants to be at these studios and loves
Yeah,
working there. I would say most of, if not all of my mentors, just love what they do at their studios and they're perfectly happy doing what they do. I've definitely known a few professional animators where if they don't feel fulfilled in their studio jobs, like over the weekends and stuff, they'll work on their own personal stuff
yeah,
to stay inspired.
yeah,
But then also, like I said, I've met with some alumni from my college that like we're gonna do like work in a studio and then realized, hey, we don't want to do this, and they started their own, and now
yeah,
they do independent projects, and that works better for them. So
yeah,
I think it just entirely depends on who you are, what type of work you're looking for. But
yeah.
there are ways to kind of still keep that passion.
Well, and in that respect, because that was kind of, I don't know if it's so much a big thing now, but it was kind of, you know, a big kind of hot issue, especially with VFX artists. Um, just and I know it's not the same where you're at because it's a small studio,
Mhm.
but if the opportunity would present itself to, say, like Marvel, and you had the
Mhm.
chance to go into Marvel doing VFX, and obviously it's a different workload,
Mhm.
would that be something that you would think about? Because there has been this thing about, just all the work that, is put on, especially VFX artists, because
Yeah.
most movies are so VFX heavy
Mhm.
now. Is that something that you would take into consideration? Especially since, compositing, you have a love for it, but
Mhm.
you have a bigger love for animation. Is that
Yeah.
something that you would take into consideration, say, if, like I said, you had the opportunity to go to Marvel, knowing that, hey, it's a lot different?
Yeah. I think if like an opportunity arose from a larger studio, at least just compositing wise, I'd be more inclined to stay where I'm at. I like I said, I love working at Baked. It's a great studio and they
Yeah,
treat me really well. And I think in VFX, like you said, in a lot of instances that can be hard to come by. So like if someone came up and was like, oh, like compositing for Marvel, I'd probably stay at Baked. If they were like, oh, we have an animator position, then I'd move because animation's where I
yeah,
want to be.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, just for compositing, like Baked has been wonderful, and I'm not inclined to leave to composite at another place. I
yeah,
like my experience with them for sure.
yeah. And like I said, it's, obviously there's a big thing. Like I said, Marvel was having a big little stint there with a lot of the
Mhm.
VFX artists getting burned out, and just because of the nature of the workload that was coming through and the timelines that were coming through and stuff. Um, for you, and I want to kind of, dive a little into, um, diversity,
Mhm.
and more women. You're in the LGBT. LGBTQ space.
Yeah.
Um, really having this need. I wanted to know what does diversity and inclusion mean for you?
I think for me, honestly, it just means no matter where you are, being able to find a safe space and people that will love and respect you for who you are. Um, I have noticed just like professionally right now, it's interesting. When I went to college, my college program was hugely in the LGBTQ community. I think most of my classmates were in some way, shape, or form
Yeah,
LGBTQ. And then it's interesting because coming into the professional space, like there are definitely still LGBTQ creators and professional workers out there, but it does seem a lot smaller than like when I was studying at college.
yeah,
But in a way, that can be kind of inspiring because it means that all these people are learning and are going to be a part of this industry, and maybe we can create more inclusive spaces within studios and then tell more diverse stories so that young people don't feel so alone in who they
yeah,
are.
yeah. I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen Nimona?
Yes, I loved Nimona.
Did you? Yeah. I
Yeah.
wonder what your thoughts were on it because that really was kind of um, you could almost say groundbreaking in its own
Mhm.
way because you never really saw a kiss between
Yeah.
two men. Kind of Nimona was kind of this ambiguous character. Do you
Mhm.
see more stories like that having being greenlit to be put out there? And what are your thoughts? Because obviously you'll find people on one side or the other, as
Mhm.
opposed to that type of content
Yeah.
being kind of marketed to kids.
Mhm. Yeah, I would like to hope that we get more of those types of stories greenlit. And I know a lot of people are worried about marketing towards children, but it's an interesting argument to me because I grew up watching, like Mulan or like Little Mermaid or whatever,
Yeah,
where you have a heterosexual couple that's sharing a kiss as well. So why just because they're both male or both female or however
yeah,
they identify, why does that change the fact that it's the same action? I don't see that being something that like harms
yeah,
children. If anything, I think it can help because growing up where I grew up and like my specific sect in the LGBTQ community, like I wish that I had known more about it as a kid because that helps you feel less alone. Whereas like when you're going through growing up and like feeling things different than all of your other friends, like it's hard not to feel like you're just wrong or there's something wrong with you.
yeah,
And so like having this representation for kids, and again, it doesn't have to be graphic, like just holding hands or sharing a kiss at the end like a Nimona, like that I feel like will help so many children feel less alone and not feel like they're wrong.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. And what do you feel like are some of the things that can be done or put into place to really start to make more of this change? I always say, like I said, when I'm talking about, blacks and African Americans in the space, yeah, there's a lot of creatives, at the level of doing it. I'm always looking at who's in the executive room. Who are those
Hmm.
executives that are, making the decisions to have these uh, movies greenlit? And we need more of those. What do you feel are some of the things that can be done to kind of make that change and make more of that change and more of that shift to putting more content out there?
Yeah, well, I think honestly, it's like you said, having on the higher level, like more diverse people, more people that want to share these diverse stories, that would have the power to greenlit these diverse stories, or even having, I've seen just in my lifetime showrunners of like kids cartoons and stuff that have made huge strides in inclusivity, especially for like LGBTQ community, where they're a showrunner of a popular show, and even though executives didn't want them to go in the direction they went, they wouldn't back down and were like, this is the story I want to tell. And because of that, you've seen kind of the ripples from
Yeah.
that, and how a lot of different TV shows now aren't as hard line about you can't show this or you can't represent this because it's been done by someone else. So just
Yeah.
having people more towards the top, at least, that are willing to fight for these types of stories, I think can really make a big change.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Um, as it pertains to animation, like I said, you love Pixar. You got the letter from Pixar. Is Pixar style animation the animation that you would love to do, or is it? Do you love Disney? Do you love Warner? Do you love anime, 2D, 3D? I mean, when it comes to animation, where is kind of the space or the lane you would kind of like to start to go down?
Yeah, Pixar is definitely like the initial inspiration, and that's a lot of what I try to emulate in my personal projects, the things I put on my reel. I have been super inspired also by what Sony has been doing over at ImageWorks, obviously
Mm,
with
yeah,
Spider-Verse and
Spider Verse.
Mitchell's and stuff,
Yeah.
where they're trying to, push the boundaries of what animation can be, and even like I was so inspired by Across the Spider-Verse earlier this year. My
Yeah.
roommate and I
Yeah.
literally went 6 times in the movie
Yeah.
theater, and just looking at the animation and how they weren't afraid to go really subtle with it, and like really hone in on like the small movements that can show emotion. And that's honestly what's been a big inspiration for me now, is just toning my stuff back in order to get that subtle acting,
Yeah.
because I feel like in a lot of instances that can show so much more with so much less.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And because I think about this as well when it comes to character animating. What was the hardest thing that you had a challenge picking up? Because I would think getting emotion and really
Hmm.
and which is why I love watching people's reference reels and
Yeah.
how they really act out and try and get the emotion. But I would think it would be even more tougher getting getting that emotion off a
Hmm.
off a computer
Yeah.
and working keyframes to get those emotions.
Mhm.
Is was that for me? That would be the toughest thing about character animation. What was the hardest thing, kind of learning character animation that you had a challenge with, or that was really challenging for you to get through? And you may even still, I mean, it's never a never ending thing. You're always working to
Yeah.
make yourself better. But something that, like I said, kind of got you, maybe stuck, or is like, man, I'm just not getting this, or I'm just finding
Mhm.
it hard. Was it the hardware of just manipulating the keys, or was it the acting of getting a real honest emotion from a 3D, a 3D model?
Yeah. So I've had a few struggles just like throughout my journey. When I first started at RIT, I can definitely say my first class in Maya made me cry like multiple times because I was like, I just don't get this.
Yeah, I don't even
um,
want to open Maya. I'm like, I even watch somebody working in Maya. I'm like, I don't want to work in Maya. I
but
don't,
like like okay, now Maya's my second home, great. And then at Animation Mentor it was like, oh, I did not know how body mechanics worked, and like that took a while to get through. And now it's finding that balance between including the principles of animation in my work, but not overdoing it in the acting. And that's something that I've been trying to learn, because when I first started at Mentor, they were like, your reference footage, like you need to do more with it. You need to be more or whatever to emulate animation. So I would be a little bit more like cartoony or whatever in my acting. And then recently, like, I was connecting with an animator and they looked at my reel and they were like, you need to tone it down. And so now it's like, shoot, like I was too subtle and now I'm not subtle enough. Like I need to find the middle. um, so yeah, it's all about like getting that acting to a place that feels realistic, but something that you can still stylize a little bit in animation to make it pop. That's
yeah,
something I'm working on right now that I'm still working towards for sure.
yeah. So when you watch a movie like Into the Spider-Verse, Pixar animations, are you sitting down, enjoying the movie as a movie and a storyline, or are you also looking at the small movements, or do you go back? You watch it once as a fan and a viewer to watch it, and then go back and maybe go through it frame by frame to kind of pick up the movements of how they animated it and stuff like that. So are you kind of in that mode of where you're analyzing movies and analyzing things to get your animation better?
Yeah, so the first viewing is definitely I'm just there to have fun. um, my a lot of times it's funny. My roommate and I will come back from a movie and he's analytical of the story and he's like, "This part of the story didn't make sense," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" But first time I'm like, I'm just gonna enjoy it, and after that, every time I'm like, okay, it is that very much like, how did they animate this? How was this subtlety working? How did they implement certain things? Going frame by frame. I love having physical media, being able to like just go frame by frame and seeing what the animators were doing, what they were thinking. But that is definitely something I did with Spider-Verse, even in theaters when we went time number 4, 5, 6, whatever. It was
Yeah.
like, all right, like I know what's going on in this story now. Like, how did they convey that through the animation? And how can I learn something from that and do that in my own work?
Yeah, yeah. Now, was that something you picked up more in obviously an animation mentor than you did in the classes that you took at or did you take animation classes at
Yeah,
Rochester? So
I
do
did.
you think you picked up more methodology in animation mentor than you did in Rochester?
I think probably, but I don't think it was at the fault of my classes at RIT. I
No,
think
no.
in a yeah, I think in a lot of instances, like I was told like the principles of animation at RIT multiple times. Like
Yeah.
they were like, here's the principles, here's what you do with them, and I don't think they fully clicked in like as I'm animating until I did mentor because I don't know, just being told the 100th time or whatever finally made it something that I can understand more fundamentally while I'm working. So yeah, I don't know. It definitely clicked more in mentor, but I think it was just the fact that it was so specialized, and then the fact that it was like this repetition of hearing this, and now I'm finally like getting it. They say takes what 1,000 hours, 10,000
Yeah.
hours
To hear
to
something.
understand something.
Yeah, and I was gonna kind of refer to that as opposed to why I think you picked it up more in Animation Mentor. One, because they're actual working animators that's their job is to get this emotion from these characters that they're animating. So for them to be more keenly aware of kind of watching your reference video, reference footage, being more
Yeah.
observant of life, and
Mhm.
how people are interacting with each other in real life type of thing. Do you also do you find yourself also doing that as well, kind of observing life a lot
Yeah.
differently and a lot more intently now when you're looking
Mhm.
at people?
Yeah, I I find I get myself into trouble sometimes. I can be kind of voyeuristic. Like
Okay, what are you
I
staring at? What are you looking at?
like I people watch and then it's like, oh, based on like how their tone is or their body language, like how are they feeling and stuff. Like our neighbors at our prior apartment got so mad at me because like they're like, you're looking at me, and I'm like, shoot. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not creepy, I promise.
You should have a sign. You should have a sign that says, "I'm an animator.
I'm an animator.
I'm just observing real life."
But yeah, and then it was wild because in another sense, like one of my first jobs that I did, I taught tennis to like kids
Yeah,
because grew up playing tennis, and after I was taking animation mentor that year, it was so much easier for me to see where their strokes were going wrong, like analyzing their
mm,
motion and being like, oh, like it's because you're doing this specific thing instead of not quite knowing and just
yeah,
guessing. Like it was like, oh, like I can actually analyze how
yeah,
their motion is affecting how
yeah.
they're
I'm
working.
watching
So
your arcs. Your
yeah,
arcs are not.
yeah. That was a big thing. I was like, you gotta get the arc in there.
Oh man, oh man. So what would I mean? Obviously, like I said, you love monster scene. What and you love kind of, into the Spider Verse. What are some
Mhm.
other movies that you've seen that you're like, wow, that's some really great animation, and how they did it? What are some other movies that you really kind of enjoyed watching the animation along with the story?
Yeah, I have a list of like all-time
Give me
favorites.
your give me your top give me your top three.
Oh boy. Kung Fu Panda 2 is definitely up there.
Okay.
I went into that movie as a kid not expecting much and I was completely blown away.
Yeah.
I still think about like especially how they animated like the villain, the peacock, and like the way he fought with his tail and everything like that was so amazing and really cool. I love that movie
Yeah.
so much. I love Inside Out. I love the fact that the characters personified emotion and how that affected even simple things like how they walk or how even quiet moments when they're thinking like you can see they think differently and I think that movie's incredible. Oh god. I'm trying to think of like I have all these movies that it's like what should be number three.
It's hard.
I think
It's always a hard question when somebody says, "What's your top three movies?" I'm like, I love movies, so it's so hard.
I think my third, and this one comes kind of out of left field. I really loved the Little Prince animated movie that Netflix did quite a few years ago now. They took it
Hmm.
off, unfortunately, but I have it on
Yeah.
Blu-ray. Um, there's something about the stylization of that movie and how going to like the different planets and seeing like how the style changes, and even just the story overall of like fighting growing up. And I love the line that's like I'm gonna grow up but I'm not gonna be a grown up.
Yeah.
And I feel like that line honestly is something that's so relatable to a lot of people that work in animation because
Yeah.
we are making media for all ages.
Yeah. Yeah.
My reel actually the song on it is from that movie.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And speaking of which, it's a great transition. We're going to
Hey.
take a look at some of Christine's work and come back and have a little bit more talk. But let's first take a look at some of Christine's work here.
Say you hate me. Just say just say something. Say you hate me. Just say anything.
Somehow, heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Turn around, it's fine floating. Turn around, like bees and butter. Turn around and fall in the grass. Da-da-dee-doo-doo. Straight, how can you be so straight? Life is everything but straight. It's going up and down. Far, happiness isn't far. Not far from where you are. Watching your life go by. Loud, why don't you sing out loud?
Fine. I don't want to do anything about it. It's your life. It's not mine.
Some amazing work there. I'm curious because I've always, like I said, I haven't done a lot of, character animating, which, I would love to get more into. But I'm curious, when you're animating a character that's moving, that's emoting and stuff, do you start with the broad movements and then work your way into the smaller nuances of their eyes and that type of thing? How does your process go for when you're or how do they teach you in Animation Mentor when it comes to animating a character that where their body's not only moving but their facial, everything's moving, but they may have dialogue as well.
I think honestly, what's nice about mentors, they kind of let us all find our own workflow. My class six mentor gave us what he does, and I've kind of modified that, and that's helped me a lot. But me personally, what I do is I do the body first, like the big body movements. I get those blocked out looking nice. And sometimes I'll block out the face at the same time, but I'll just do main facial expressions, not the like lip sync or anything like that yet, or blinks or anything. And then I'll go into spline, I'll spline out the body, I'll make sure the body's kind of polished and looks as good as it's going to look before I go into the nuances of animating the face and getting the movement right and the lip sync right. Splining the face and polishing it is normally like my very last step.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I've always wondered, like I said, how you would go, and I guess everybody has their different, methodology. But I would figure it would be easier, easier to start with those big movements and work your way down to, the small hand gestures or small hand movements within the overarching bigger movements of how you animate. Do you love character animating, human characters, or have you played around with those kind of, I forget the word, anamorphic animals, or,
Yeah.
The more animals, or, I mean, which do you prefer, one or the other, or have you done either one? Do they make you do not just human characters, but, other kind of characters in Animation Mentor? What's kind of the process of how they get you prepared to animate?
So I personally do a lot more work with human characters and talking. I have done some projects which, have been cut from my reel since of animals and stuff like that. Animation Mentor, at least the character animation course, doesn't force you into animating creatures if you don't want to.
Yeah.
It's definitely more focused on like human bipedal characters. But if you want to do quadrupeds or animals or anything like that, a lot of times you're more than welcome to, and you can still get really good advice. They have a separate course that's like creature animation and
Creature
stuff like that
animation.
if you're interested. At RIT actually was where I got more like work with quadrupeds. We did, I think, one or two assignments where it was like a walk cycle and then like a quadruped acting and stuff like that, where that helped a lot. But personally, I'm definitely more into like the acting side of things and
Yeah.
like character acting.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I would never animate an animal,
Yeah. Nah, it's all, and like I say, you always, I guess, learn something in just body mechanics of how, ooh, excuse me, of how characters move, or how you can impose a kind of a spidery like walk in a human character if the story called for it. So I guess it all feeds into each other.
Mhm.
To this point, um, what's been kind of the best piece of advice that's been given to you? And it doesn't necessarily have to pertain to animating or your profession, but what's been the best kind of piece of advice that's really helped you along in this journey?
I've had a few. I did mention already the eye and the hand moving at different paces and like learning to accept that. That was huge for me.
Yeah.
But there were actually two different pieces of advice from professors at RIT that I think really helped me a lot and that I think of a lot. One of my first 3D professor always said the difference between a professional and an amateur is attention to detail. And I didn't quite get it at first, but especially in animating, when you're animating subtleties and like some people could just like, if a hand's contacting with something, just like leave it at that. But a professional will add like some squash and stretch in the fingers or stuff like that where it feels more real.
Yeah.
And then another professor at RIT, I remember we went on a trip to LA, and one of my former tripmates was like, I want to walk up to the Hollywood sign. So we kind of woke up early one day to do this hike. She's like, it'll be easy, guys, I promise. It was not. And I was in business casual clothes because we're like meeting with professionals. We're hiking up to the top of this Hollywood sign. And when we got down to the bottom, my professor that took us on the trip was like, hold on, guys. And he was like, was this harder than you thought it was going to be? And we were like, yes, like 100% yes. And he's like, are you glad we did it? And we're like, yeah, like the views were amazing. It was awesome. And he was like, well, that's working in this industry, or that's like working to be a better artist, is like, it is never going to be easier than you expect. Like there's always going to be something that like challenges in your way, but if you stick with it, it's gonna be amazing and perfect. He gave us little rocks from the top. I still have mine like on my desk to remind me like, yeah, like it might be hard, but it's going to be worth it, and just keep pushing through, because I feel like a lot of people when they first graduate like get disenchanted with like, oh, it's not happening, this is so hard, but it's if you have that perseverance, like you will make it. You just got to stay strong in your resolve, basically.
Yeah. I try and keep in mind for myself, it's never the end destination. It's always the journey and what you learn along the way that makes you a better person. I mean, you'll always have a goal, but even say you got to Pixar, then, there's always going to be another mountain, that you see. So always enjoy the journey of this that you're on. I try and look at it like that. Enjoy the journey. May take you a little longer than some other people on the journey, but you're on your own journey for sure. Definitely appreciate that. Christine, this has been such a fun episode. I cannot thank you enough for being on here. We definitely hit the 1.5 hour mark here. I always enjoy the good, long, deep, in-depth conversations that really help and help people and really share who you are. Again, like I said, I can't thank you enough for one, being a part of the Color of Motion family. Two, I can't wait to get you back on, because I know you're going to be working on even more amazing stuff. So definitely we are here to highlight you and the things that you're working on, for sure. Everybody, I hope that, you got some great value from this and really enjoyed the episode. Mr. Dewan, Christine was very good at her character animation. The first shot in her reel. Did you shoot reference of that dance shot of yourself, or?
I did not shoot reference. This is embarrassing, but it came from a reality TV show called Dance Moms.
Oh man. Well, I can't wait to see. Are you averse to sharing your because I know some people, like I said, I always find it great, especially when they have a split view of, what they acted out versus what was animated. I always enjoy watching artists post that, for sure. Is that something that, your reference shots are just for you and nobody else to see?
I've recently had to get over being embarrassed, because if you want to be better, you have to show people. So maybe my next personal shot, I'll show my acting reference, and
that
you guys
definitely
can
be inspiring for sure. Mr. Dewan, holy crap! He admits Dance Mom is a good reference. Miss Maggie likes it for sure. Appreciate that, Maggie. But like I said, this has been such a fun episode for sure. And definitely can't wait to get you back on the show. Everybody, please make sure that you connect with Christine. She's pretty much on all the social channels, but you can connect with her here for sure. Connect with her on LinkedIn. Check out her Twitter channel. Definitely, you'll see more of her work because she's definitely always working on new stuff, and can't wait to see it out All this information will be, of course, on the show notes for the YouTube channel. So make sure that you hop on over there, connect with Christine. Now that she's a part of the Color Motion family, that hopefully you'll join so you can communicate and engage with her there as well, for sure. So definitely reach out and connect with her and check out more of her work, because there's going to be even more great work coming out from her for sure. Christine, like I said, I cannot thank you enough for being on the show, taking a little bit of your Saturday to join me, to share, and to really hopefully inspire not only future artists but future young kids, more LGBTQ into the industry, just anybody that's creative. Helping to inspire to live their dream and follow their dream, because it's so easy, like we were talking about at the beginning, to get swayed by other people's opinion of where they think you should go or what they think you should do. Always follow, what's inside and what you feel has to come out. So I appreciate you so much and have so much respect for you for following your dream and doing what it is that you enjoy doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Well, we try and make it as enjoyable and as fun as possible. If you could hang out in the green room for just a second while I close out the show, I appreciate it. But everybody, please, again, help me thank my very special guest and friend, Miss Christine Miller. Hang out for just 1 second here, Christine. Guys and gals, this has been another amazing episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoy. I always enjoy, like I said, doing the show. It really does recharge me and charge me up and get me inspired to get more serious about, my dreams of doing more in animation and stuff. So it's something that you just cannot put aside, and so when I do the episode, it's not only you that's learning and getting something from it, but it's definitely something that I'm getting inspired and something from it as well. Again, I can't thank Christine enough for coming on, sharing her journey, being a part of the family. Can't thank you enough, the viewers, for always tuning in and supporting the show. Like I said, as this year closes out, we got a couple of months, but again, like I said, the holiday time really goes by quick. I've been thinking a lot more about the show, the direction I'm wanting to take the show, ratcheting it up even more and making it even more sharper. So these are things that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Again, hearing from you, getting feedback from you is definitely going to help me to do that. I'm really wanting to make this show much more meatier, much more enjoyable, and much more fun, not only for my friends and guests coming on, but for you, the viewers, as well. Like I said, this was a great episode. Next week is going to be, of course, no exception. You definitely don't want to miss out on that. I got a very special guest coming on. This Lisa A. Lewis, production manager and animator, going to come on and share her journey and her insights on just what she's doing. So super looking forward to that as well, and you don't want to miss it either. Well, this is another great show in the can, and again, I can't thank you enough for giving me just a little bit of your time this Saturday. So everybody have a great rest of the day, a great rest of the weekend, and an even better week, and I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers, everybody.